Mature souls. By the end of the young soul phase, uneasiness arises that something is amiss. All the wealth, power and acclaim aren't quite enough. Profits and winning no longer have any real value. Thus begins the search of the mature soul period. The questions, who am I? Why am I here? Are asked with frequency in these lives. Much of what can be said about mature souls is what would be said about people in their middle age. That is, they have subconscious access to depths of experience not present in younger souls. Consequently, their perceptions are fairly advanced. Rather than look forward and outward like younger souls, they look backward and inward. But these are trying, intense times. Emotions open up. Boundaries between people break down. Seeing another person's point of view becomes possible as people become deeply immersed in relationship issues. They constantly evaluate whether their life goals are being achieved and what they would do differently if they could start again. They have a strong tendency to be introspective, but this incessant self-evaluation can lead to psychological difficulties. Mature souls are in their midlife crisis, so to speak, of the maturation cycle, so they make a lot of adjustments along the way in their lives. One of the reasons why young souls are able to direct so much energy towards their success is that their inner lives aren't calling for attention. This allows their energy to flow easily after externals. Not so in the mature age. There is more emotional centering here, more intensity, more schizophrenia, more pain, suicide, love, sensuality than there is in any other period. The actress Sally Field, while pregnant with her third child, was quoted as saying, "It's scary to think that there will be another human being in the world that I will love that much." Her lament embodies the typical mature soul intensification of feeling. Ages 1 to 4. Creativity flows. Philosophy and art come into prominence. Mature souls seek to comprehend everything. There is very little that escapes their view or scrutiny. In the early lives, mature souls seek knowledge in libraries and universities. They are great believers in education. They go to school for a different reason than young souls. Whereas young souls get education to further their careers, most mature souls seek knowledge for its own sake. They truly want to understand. It may not always be in a formal or institutional setting, since this can be a little too structured and limiting or too young soulish for them. They often pursue knowledge on their own, reading widely or taking night school classes on whatever subject is of interest to them. This they often do rather than seeking a formal degree. The courses that mature souls take are less likely to involve occupation and more likely to be for personal improvement. Mature souls care more about what they are learning than about the grades they make in learning it. Because they are often misunderstood and perceived as disturbed, when actually just perceiving more than the baby or young souls, mature souls often gravitate towards a community of other mature souls where they can be understood. Sedona in the United States and Glastonbury in the UK are two well-known mature soul cities, as is Amsterdam in Holland. Mature souls are in a searching mode all of their lives. There is an itch to the finding themselves and expressing themselves. Personal fulfillment is their conquest. This they never quite achieve to their own satisfaction. The problem is that mature souls are complex. Actually, they're the most complex of the entire cycle. There is so much going on in their psyches which other people cannot fathom, and they themselves don't always understand. The mature soul age is the most challenging of the ages, which can lead them to becoming agitated, oversensitive and touchy. Because of their psychological sensitivity and complexity, early mature souls often exhibit a lot of confusion in their lives. For this reason, they are often considered neurotic, probably because of all the psychological garbage that they have churning around in their heads. The mature soul's main learning in these lives is largely concerned with feelings. They are working through emotional blocks. They are the most likely of the ages to need and seek psychological counselling for their emotional difficulties. The majority of people who go to psychologists for counselling are mature souls, and the majority of psychologists are themselves mature souls. And they are probably having a lot of psychological churning that they themselves are trying to work through. Many psychological challenge comes to the surface in the mature soul age, which have to be dealt with on a conscious level. If it cannot be dealt with, the person may turn to alcoholism or drug abuse as an escape. These methods of numbing one's emotions are more prevalent in this age than any other. Mature souls will not often let themselves do actual physical harm to other people like young souls might, so they turn their frustration concerning others upon themselves. Jim Morrison is a perfect example of a mature soul tormented by his own thoughts and feelings. Ages 4 to 7. In the later levels of the mature age, the person almost always seeks answers to the big questions of life in a way that few people in more primitive cycles do. This often means involvement in metaphysical endeavour, practice or knowledge. By metaphysical, I mean everything from psychology to religion to the psychic. Concepts and issues which younger souls would pass over as meaningless are very important to mature souls. For instance, the young soul is somewhat anti-psychological. He finds fulfillment in material things. He rarely questions his own motivations or that of others. But the mature soul looks for a larger meaning in life. He wants to understand the significance of everything and the motivations for why people do things. More than a person of any other age, the mature soul cares. They care about the problems of the planet. They want to correct them. They care about other people and they want to help them. Cares about his own well-being and wants to improve it. Mature souls are often open to all experiences and are prone to try pragmatic solutions to their difficulties rather than using canned establishment or young soul imperatives. In fact, the one thing that typifies mature souls to me is that they are nearly always fighting for some cause, or they're certainly passionate about injustice, animal rights, volunteering for work in the third world countries. They really do want to save the world. Since mature souls are relatively evolved in their consciousness, their behaviour is very ethical. They are working on the finer points of human relationships. They value the feelings and opinions of other people, and it hurts them when others do not think well of them. While it is true that they can be somewhat nonconformist and even a little bit rebellious in their natures, nevertheless, mature souls are not completely detached from a sense of social obligation. Though relationships and knowledge and emotions are their primary concerns, mature souls do work for a living, but it is not with the gusto of a young soul. There is not the willingness to put everything into a career and rise to the top. And generally, family, friends and health nearly always come first over their careers. Countries with mature soul attributes may tend to put more attention on social relationships rather than on material goods and efficiencies. Examples are Italy, Greece, Egypt and Mexico. Italy has had about 50 post-war cabinet crises. This is typical mature soul thinking. Death by committee, never wanting to hurt anyone's feelings, but never being able to come to a compromise in case they might harm some members of their community. They really do try and please everyone, and in a young soul world, this is not very productive. England, even with its solid roots, is a little off balance due to its entry into the mature phase. With the advent of socialism, which aims for more equal distribution of wealth, the average Briton is suddenly more focused on internals than on the never-ending struggle to maintain a power position in the world. People are less interested in nose-to-the-grindstone hard work, but not just because their basic survival is supported by a socialistic system. They have changed on an inner level. Around mid-1987, many young soul countries like Holland and France started nosing into a mature consciousness. This happened because suddenly their populations had more mature souls than young souls, and the old balance started changing. Those countries will still feel primarily young soul in ambience and action for some time to come, but you'll notice within them the desire to make sure that everyone is taken care of. Since mature consciousness realises we are all in this together, Portons may get attached to rights of animals like dolphins, farm animals, near extinct species, rabbits, monkeys or rats being used for medical research, or fur being used for warm clothing. Poland and Russia are countries brimming with mature souls, where strong agreements exist for assets to be divided fairly, for everyone to have equal share of wealth. Marxist theory is very much mature soul in flavour, and this is why young souls demonise it. Relationships. Mature souls are very relationship orientated, and they seek the camaraderie of like-minded companions. In contrast to young souls who tend to regard their career as paramount, mature souls often value their relationships as the most important thing in their lives. They build their lives around social contacts and friends who have similar interests. Family members, in the sense of blood relatives, which are very important to the three younger soul ages, are not as important to mature souls, as are good companions. Sexuality and love. Mature souls seek mates not for status, as young souls often do, but for love. It is unusual for a person younger than mature to experience true love for their mate. Mature souls want someone to whom they can relate meaningfully, rather than just someone to fulfill the stereotypical role of a mate ordained by young soul society. A good place for mature souls to meet others for companionship or mating is in school or at the library. Second choice would be informal or loosely organised single groups where they can get to know each other as friends first and then become lovers. The bar scene does not appeal to them at all. Mature souls want to mate for life. For the first time, souls can explore true passion and sensuality during sex, and you can bet they know a bit about tantric sets and the Kama Sutra. And yep, unlike the baby souls, the candles are lit, the warm massage oil is out, and prolonged exploration of each other begins. Spiritual outlook and religion. In terms of religion, if the mature soul is so inclined, he prefers liberal churches rather than the mainstream churches. And again, if he goes to organised religions, it is usually the undogmatic and quiet faiths such as Unitarianism and Unity. In their quest for truth at the extreme, the mature soul may experiment with more unorthodox or offbeat brands of New Age sects and neo-paganism. Mature souls have a strong sense of morality and ethics, but it is of the situational ethics and moral relativism variety. Now, this disgusts younger baby souls. In political philosophy, the mature soul is liberal, left-wing, perhaps even to the point of being socialistic. The idealistic hippie era of the 1960s was a mature soul phenomenon. Often they lived in communes or shared homes. Mature souls are reluctant to fight in wars because they regard humankind as their brethren. For this reason, they also tend to be pacifists, and not in a militant way like a young soul might be. Even though they love freedom, they usually prefer to submit to domination rather than fight for that freedom. A clear example of this is America today. The mature souls, who form about a third of the population, submit to the domineering young souls who control the government. How they relate to other soul ages. Mature souls enjoy the company of other mature souls for their emotional potency, as well as for the being on the same path kind of feeling. They appreciate old souls for their information and guidance, while young souls are enjoyed for their reminder of how to push forward in the world and get things done. Mature souls have a highly developed sense of humour and they laugh easily. The type of humour they prefer is situational comedy, involving social relationships. They like to tease and joke with their friends, but their teasing is rarely hostile or denigrating like it can be with young souls. The type of movies they prefer are the award winners with depth, meaning and originality, usually produced by mature souls, not the shallow action or adventure type produced by young souls. Actually, and that is why the mature soul level movie Avatar and its mature soul director, James Cameron, were dumped by the Young Soul Academy Awards in favour of a badly produced war film in The Hurt Locker. That's what happens when the young souls rule the world. An appropriate motto for the mature soul would be, I know how you feel. Outlook on life. Mature souls are very much involved in the affairs of the world, but they have a great need for a quiet refuge to which they can retreat in times of stress. They like to have a cabin in the woods or by a lake where they can take a vacation from the rat race. They do not seek material things or have a second home for status like young souls, but rather for an escape or a sanctuary. Mature souls seek less tangible things than material possessions. Also, mature souls are the avant-garde of society. It is they who make the genuinely novel contributions to the advancement of culture. They are the inspired visionaries. Whatever field of endeavour you might name, whether it's scientific, religious, political, technological, artistic, philosophical, humanitarian, even economical, it is the mature souls who are in the forefront, at the leading edge, on the frontiers. Mature souls often campaign for reforms in society. They form the core of the environmentalist movement, the anti-nuclear energy movement, the anti-genetically modified crops, the anti-chemtrails, and other such improve the world endeavours. Mature souls are beyond the young soul in perception of the value of the spiritual aspects of life, but they are nonetheless entangled with the affairs of the world to such an extent that they think the planet is worth the trouble of making it a better place. Old souls, on the other hand, have pretty much given up on the whole world in a material sense, as we shall see next.